Hi friends, Laura here. I'm back for BookMas Day 28. We are getting close to the end of BookMas. We are well into 2021, but I started my BookMas a little bit later, as you guys know through all these videos. So this week's topic, or today's topic, is one that I haven't done in my previous BookMases, but I also haven't really done it at all. But because I started doing, kind of expanding my channel a little bit more and talking about what I'm loving, what movies and other fandom-y things I'm liking, I decided to do a year wrap-up about what TV shows, movies, or things outside of reading. There is like one little thing about reading towards the end, but that really captured me. We can all admit 2020 was a weird year. It was just a bizarre year. It was the weirdest year of my life so far due to COVID and quarantine and, a lot of other stuff happening. It was just a weird year. And I really started relying, other than reading, on just TV shows and movies and stuff like that. And I just started escaping into a reality that was not really 2020. And I found that to be super cathartic. And in addition to reading, which I got a lot of reading done, and you guys should check out my other wrap-ups where I talk about my reading life. But these are just TV shows and movies that I really wound up liking, and just other things that captured my attention. So this is kind of a COVID recap of things that got me through 2020, but also just like stuff that I really liked. So I broke it down into movies, TV shows is definitely the longer list, and then just other things. So I'm going to talk about the movies first. As I've said this in a lot of videos, I don't watch a whole lot of movies. I tend to watch a lot of TV shows, but I'm trying to get better at watching more movies. I watched like a ridiculous amount of movies this month, but I just tend to not watch them. And it's especially challenging now because there is no movie theater. So I really have to go out of my way to make time to watch them. And I just have not been doing that. So trying to make it a goal in 2021 to be a little bit better about keeping up to date on movies. But the first movie that really caught me off guard, or I really liked, just the first one on this list, was Hamilton when they released it on Disney+. I was able, by some blessing of heavens, to actually see Hamilton live in person a couple of years ago, but I didn't see it with the original cast, and I like the Disney adaptation. I like that they filmed it. I liked just seeing the original cast. It's been so long since I've seen Broadway shows. I'll make that a little bit of a category. It's not going to be that big of a category, but I'll talk about a couple of my favorite Broadway shows that I saw in 2020. There's very, very few of them. But I really like that they had the forethought to kind of bank this show and then just release it at some point. We were supposed to get a theatrical release, and then that didn't happen due to everything happening in the world, but I just really like that. I just found that to be super well crafted, and I was really happy to see everyone in their parts that I've heard so much about. I got to listen to the soundtrack. So again, that was an experience that I really liked. I watched it on 4th of July, and it was amazing. And then the next movie that really struck me was Onward, which is the Pixar movie. I think it's Pixar. It may not be Pixar. Maybe it's Disney. With Tom Holland and Chris Pratt about brothers that go on an adventure to find their dad. I saw this right pre-COVID, and it just was a really, really warm, sweethearted movie, and it just put a smile on my face. I really love Chris Pratt and Tom Holland, and I thought the movie was super sweet. I have their Funko figures over there, and again, them just working together and hearing their voices, and just such a sweet story about brothers, and the end of the story was really, really emotional as well, and it just was one that definitely hit me in the emotions a little bit. And then the next movie that I wound up really, really enjoying was also the half of it. Now, this was on Netflix, and it was from the girl Leah, who is in Nancy Drew, which I'll talk about in my next section. But it was just like a really fun, unique movie about a girl who winds up falling in love with someone she doesn't think she should. And it was like an LGBTQ friendly movie, but with a lot more heart to it than I was expecting. And I really enjoyed it. I really like that actress. She's in Nancy Drew, but it was just a movie that I didn't necessarily think I would love, but I wound up really enjoying it, and the acting was adorable as well. And then the last movie I'm going to talk about on this video. Now, I did a lot of rewatching this year. I will say that, like a lot of rewatching, but these are new movies that I found or that I experienced. And the last one was Super Intelligence with Melissa McCartney and James Corden, where it was recently released, like in the last 2 weeks or 3 weeks. And it follows this super intelligence that winds up deciding whether it's going to save the world or kill the world, and they decide to base their decision on Melissa McCartney's character, and you have James Corden's voice and Melissa McCartney's acting, and it was so fun. It was a really heartfelt movie, and it just felt like the perfect 2020 movie to like motivate. It was just a fun watch. My TV show category is going to be super long, so I am going to dive into my Broadway shows that I saw. The highlight of my show that I saw this year, there was 2 of them. I saw a small version, like a side version of Little Shop of Horrors right before COVID hit, and it was, I don't think I've ever seen that show live and in person before. It was also a really, really small theater, like off Broadway, but again, I love that show. I thought it was great, and it was one that definitely made me, I actually really wanted to try to go see it again, when Jeremy Jordan was in it, but that didn't happen because of COVID. But I really wanted to go see it again because I really liked it that much. And then the highlight show that I saw in 2020 was Frozen. For those that don't know, I am like a theater geek. I teach theater. I love theater shows. I'm a techie by nature. I love to know how things work. My students will tell you that. I'm very, very much into that. And boy, were the technical effects in Frozen some of the special effects I have ever seen in my entire life. I treated my friend to that for her birthday. I got her tickets and we went, and it was like a week before the pandemic hit, and I was so happy to see it, especially because it announced it's closing, so it's not going to come back after the pandemic, and I was devastated that it was closing because I really wanted to go see it again, but I got to see it once. I'm perfectly content with that. But yeah, those are some of the movies and the Broadway show experiences that I really loved and really enjoyed. And now we're going to move on to TV shows, fun events I went to, and just some other things that I want to speak about. So I forgot one. Music. I've been listening to music a lot more recently, and some of the artists that really stood out to me was definitely Julian the Phantoms. That's a TV show that I'm going to talk about in my TV show section, but I love that soundtrack. I not only love that show, but that soundtrack, I love those songs so much. And I've been watching behind-the-scenes documentaries about putting that show together with Kenny Ortega and the cast, and I pray to all the heavens that when we are back to somewhat state of a normal, they would actually do a tour, because I would go see them so quick it would make your head spin, because I love that band so much. I also downloaded Mandy Moore's new single called Silver Linings, her CD. I love that CD as well. Again, if she ever tours again, I would happily go see her. And also recently I listened to Evermore by Taylor Swift. I have not listened to anything else by Taylor Swift, but people were getting up in arms on Twitter and they had to know what they were thinking about. So I downloaded her CD, really liked it, and I think I'm contemplating getting a Spotify membership when I actually go back to work. That might be something I do when I actually go back to work, but I don't know when that's going to be. And right now I'll just kind of download what I need to on my own. But I definitely would like to get a Spotify account and kind of try to listen to more artists. Because the limited artists I do is normally based on TV shows that I watch. If there's like a soundtrack, like I did that with the Stranger Things soundtrack. I did that with the Julian the Phantoms soundtrack. You know, I tend to get my music from shows I watch, and that's like really it. But I'm trying to branch out a little bit more and kind of listen to more music. So due to the pandemic, pre-pandemic, there was one event I went to that I've always wanted to go to, and that was ALA in midwinter in January. Right before the pandemic, I went to ALA in Philadelphia with my friend Jen and a couple of my other friends. I had never been to ALA before. It was such a fun convention. Knowing what I know now, I'm glad I went. Really glad I went, because I got a lot of books and they kind of tied me over, knowing eventually that BEA got canceled and New York City Comic-Con got canceled. So it was like a last hurrah to see everyone and just, engage with some publishers, get a lot of reads, which always happens at those conventions. But it was definitely a convention that, if BEA got canceled or doesn't come back in the way that it has been, I will probably consider flying to ALA, wherever it is, at least one a year, and kind of using that as my second convention. But I really hope BEA comes back. There's been a lot of discussion that we're not going to get BEA ever again. We're not going to get BookCon again. That would just break my heart because I love those conventions so much. But I really liked going to ALA and definitely going to make it a goal to maybe go in the future. But just some pandemic events that I've been really engaged in. I've been watching a lot of the late night comics kind of sum up what has been happening, like James Corden, Seth Meyers, Stephen Colbert, Trevor Noah. I've been watching Jimmy Kimmel, all these people, and I really want, and it's just a nice, fun break. And I also really enjoyed how they kept having shows. And just seeing, how this pandemic has touched everyone, like celebrities included. So I really like how they were still like having interviews with people, and they were in their houses, so you kind of got to see their houses a little bit and kind of like all have a very basic understanding of what's happening, and it was just really, really fun. So there were some events, like this is at the start of the pandemic, but John Krasinski started a show called Some Good News, and it was like a 7-week series where he just kind of did like a little show. It was like 30 minutes where he just kind of shouted out some of the good news stories of the month or of the week. And I love that so much at this height of the pandemic when everything seemed so bleak and remote learning was such a struggle. Everything was such a struggle. That show was such a bright spot. Just such a bright spot in that. So that was another like pandemic related thing that was really, really fun that I really enjoyed. You also had a lot of artists like start podcasts or start YouTube channels, like that you just never had seen them in that close proximity before. You had, all these benefits happen. You had Far From Away with Josh Gad, where he kind of pulled casts of favorite TV shows together, and he kind of had them do it. And I just loved how the artists really took time out of their day to do that. There was also some really fun political themed ones with like the just casts I like there was a Hamilton one, there was an Avengers one, but just some situations that again I don't think would have happened pre-pandemic, but just put a smile on my face. And yeah, so that's my thoughts on the pre-pandemic events and the music that really like got me through 2020, and those things never would have happened without a pandemic, and maybe we'll see them a little bit more. Unique events, and now we have book events online, and I hope we could get back to a day where we can have book events in person, like signings. But it's been a real nice to just like go on to Books of Wonder and just see who's on Books of Wonder website. I've gone to a couple events with authors I just never see because they don't live near me. I got to see Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff and Alex Bracken and just other authors. They had like You All Stay Home was a convention that happened in like April. They had BookCon online. They had New York City Comic Con online, BEA. It was just a lot of virtual conventions that I think are going to change the way conventions are run. I pray we can get back to a situation where we can have conventions in person, but if for the next year that's not like it, this is a good backup option. So that's my take on those stuff, or some of the stuff that just I was excited for in 2020. And there's so few things that I was excited about, but those few events that people created, celebrities created, really put a smile on my face. I always say this, I'm much more of a TV show watcher than I am a movie watcher, and because I like to like get invested in characters, I think that's really what it is. But there's 13 shows this year that I really wound up loving. These are not all the shows that I watch. I do watch a lot. But I will say right off the bat, I loved the season of The Flash. I thought it was a really interesting storyline that I was super captivated with. And I really liked that season right off the bat. I also liked the season of The Good Doctor that we were in the middle of. That was another show that the ending really surprised me. Like, I did not see that ending coming at all. And I was like, ha. But for those that don't know, Good Doctor follows an autistic doctor named Sean Murphy, who's played by another English actor who's adorable. And this year was like their 3rd year in residency, and a lot of stuff happened. A lot of stuff for all the characters. Like, they were dealing with their own things. A lot of drama, and then the end was just really, really blew my mind a lot. Like, I really was like, whoa, I did not think it was going to go there. and then it went there. So that was a show that definitely, like, watching in real time was one that I really wound up enjoying. Another show that I watched in real time, and by that I said, like, I watched it pretty much when it was happening, was Nancy Drew, which was on the CW. This was a show that is definitely a mystery. It's a thriller, but it has a strong supernatural element, and it's definitely aged up a bit. I think Nancy's, like, out of high school. She's in college, or she's out, doesn't go to college. But it was just a really nice mix of thrilling elements, but also potentially some paranormal elements. And it was a series that really kept me on my gate. Like, I really was intrigued and I kept watching. They actually finished the season, so it was like 22 episodes, which so few episodes had because of the pandemic. But I love season 2. Season 1. Season 2 is coming out in early January, which I will definitely be watching. But this was another show that had such just fun characters, and characters that I felt like I knew because I had read Nancy Drew when I was younger, but with a modern twist, and I really liked it. So that was one that I watched in real time that I was really, really wound up enjoying. Also, I didn't watch this in real time, but it is on like cable. That's Macgyver, and I caught up on season 4 and on season 5 recently. But it was definitely a show that I have really liked. It's like, an action adventure show following Macgyver. I tailed off of season 4 when I was doing my production of Willy Wonka a couple of years ago. And I just never wound up finishing watching. And then I binge watched season 4, so I was ready for season 5. I really like season 4. It took it in a really unexpected direction that proved to be a little bit like too leery to real life towards the end of it. But again, it's a really diverse, fun show with action adventure elements that definitely kept me engaged. And now we're gonna move on to some of the more bingeable shows. I watched Lock and Key early in the year, right at the start of the pandemic, and I really like that show. It had some Stranger Things inspired elements, and I just really wound up enjoying it. I watched it pretty fast. It definitely had the Stranger Things balance of eerie and creepy and not horror, which is what I look for in my creepy TV shows because I don't like horror. But this show, definitely enjoyable. So happy it's getting a season 2 because I will definitely be watching. And then the next show that kind of was on that was basically season 1 and season 2 of The Mandalorian. I know season 1 came out early in 2019. I just never got around to finishing it, but I wound up watching it in both season 1 and season 2 in 2020 and wound up enjoying them both. Baby Yoda for the win. Where is he? He's right there. So, Baby Yoda for the win. He was adorable. I love the technological backdrops of that stuff. It's just so good. Like, loved it so much and was so happy with that show. And I really can't wait to see what happens next in that show. I don't want to spoil anything, but the end of season 2 has left me intrigued for more. And then the next show was definitely an emotional one, and that was the last season of Alexa and Katie on Netflix, which follows these two girls, and one gets cancer at the beginning of high school, and you kind of follow them as they're a sophomore, junior, and their senior year in high school. And it just was a really show that focused on female friendship and being there for your friends. It had a lot of elements of like Pretty Little Liars, but not like the horror elements. But it just had like a fun found family element. There was Tiffany Amber Thiessen in it and two fun girls. It definitely, this season made me cry. The end was so emotional. But I really wound up liking it. And it just was another show that just put a smile on my face. And I can't wait to see what those two girls do next. I will definitely be watching. And then the next show that I binged watched this whole year, I watched 6 seasons of The Good Witch. And this is really when the pandemic had hit and I needed something lighthearted to just kind of distract me from the insanity of the world. And I watched all 6 seasons of it in like a month or 2 months. And boy, did I really, really like that show. I have to try to get season 7, but I'm waiting to see if it goes on Netflix before I buy it. But it just follows this like small town where Cassie Nightingale is a witch, her daughter's a witch, and you know, it was definitely reminded me a lot of the town in like Stars Hollow and the Stars Hollow dynamics, but with a magical twist. So that was one I really, really wound up liking. I was happy that I binged the whole thing because my dad actually watches it and we talked a bit about it during the pandemic. So that was fun. And then the next two are probably the shows that stole 2020 for me. And one was the Umbrella Academy season 2 with Elliot Page and that cast. I really like season 1. I thought season 1 was interesting. I love Elliot Page as an actor. He's amazing. I've loved him since he was in Juno and Inception and all that other stuff. But I kept wanting to see Elliot Page in like a TV show. So when I saw season 1 of the Umbrella Academy, I liked it, but I always say I like families of people that like, you know, found families. I love when they work together. I missed that in season 1 of Umbrella Academy. I got that in season 2 and I was totally here for it. I loved it so much. This season did so much for me. I loved it. It was great. The cast is incredible. So excited for season 3. I'm so happy that we're getting a season 3 to see where all these characters go, but definitely one of my favorite shows of 2020, and it definitely needs a rewatch. And the next show that totally took me by surprise, I was not planning on watching this, was Julian the Phantoms. This show, again, just took me by surprise. I loved it. It follows this girl named Julie, and she winds up basically, I would say summoning in some, we don't really know how they got here, but she winds up summoning this band called Sunset Curve that wound up dying 15 years ago, eating a cursed hot dog, and they wind up coming back, and they're both into music. Julie's dealing with the death of her parents. They're dealing with their untimely demise, horribly, and the only way that people can hear them is if they play with Julie, and it was an adorable show. Adorable. I think I've watched this show like 3 to 4 times in this little like moment of my life. I love the soundtrack. I love the actors. We better get a season 2 or I'm going to riot. I'm so hopeful that we will get a season 2. Pretty much guaranteed that we'll get a season 2, but I love this show. The actors are great. If you have not checked out Julian the Phantoms, get on it. It's on Netflix. And the last like supernatural show that I wound up binging was Legacies, and I have never seen Vampire Diaries, never seen originals, but people kept telling me that if you like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, you would like Legacies. So I wound up watching the season 1 and 2 of the show, and oh my god, I loved it. I have been hunting for a witch show for so long that reminded me of Willow from Buffy, and I found it. I am totally here for it. I cannot wait for season 3. We're getting it in early 2021. But I love this show. It was like set at like a school. There was witches. There was other characters. I love all the actors. Binge watched it. Great. I'm so excited to get season 2. And I love the characters. I will definitely be talking your ear about this off in 2021. But definitely was excited that I wound up watching it. And now I just have to find the time to go backwards and watch Vampire Diaries and watch the originals so I can rewatch Legacies because I'm sure things will make a lot more sense. But off the bat, as like a standalone show, I still did really enjoy it. And the next couple of shows I'm going to chat about are just some non-supernatural shows that really I wound up loving. I love Sweet Magnolias with a couple of different actors. It's based on a book series, but follows these 3 high school best friends or teenage best friends, and they wind up growing up and they have kids, and it was just a really fun drama, and I really liked it. The ending was really surprising and went in a really like dark turn. Really excited. I think season 2 has been confirmed. I don't know when they're going to film it though, like with everything else in the world. But again, it was a little bit less lighthearted than a show like The Good Witch, but did have like a little bit of a heart to it, and I really like dramas, so again, super excited for this one. Definitely put a smile on my face and really can't wait for season 2. But it's definitely more of like, a drama with like emotional heart things and, all that other fun stuff. But I did wind up liking that. And the acting is great as well. And it had a nice balance between older characters and younger characters. So I felt like there was a little bit for everybody. Chris Klein was in it. Britney Spears' sister was in it. And a couple of other well-known actors. So I was really happy with that one. And then the next show that really took me by surprise was The Floor is Lava. I don't really watch game shows. Oh, and Nailed It. I started watching Nailed It this year, which is just like a baking show where they try to recreate masterpieces, but they're really not the best bakers, and it just made me laugh and smile. And I think I watched like 2 seasons. I'm in the middle of their Christmas season, for season 2. It's not a new show, but it's one that I really like. And The Floor is Lava reminds me a lot of Legends of the Hidden Temple, but how there's like a room full of lava and you have a group of 3 people and you have to try to get across the lava and you have to all make it to the other side and you guys get points. It's like a grown-up version of Legends of the Hidden Temple, and I loved it, and I really hope we get a season 2. And then the last show on this little list that I'm going to chat about is the reboot of the Babysitters Club on Netflix. This is another show that they really took it and aged it up and kind of diversified it, and I was totally here for it. It was like 9 episodes. It was based on the first the first 9 books in the book series, which I actually read all the graphic novels. I still have to read one more to catch myself up, but I really liked it. It was charming. It was fun. Again, another show kind of like Lex and Katie that deals with like girls being friends and babysitting, and it was just great. It just put a smile on my face, and I was really happy to watch it, and I really hope we get a season 2. I keep saying that because it's so hard with like the Netflix shows because they don't really ever they don't tell you until like so late if you're gonna get a second season, so you're just waiting and waiting and waiting, and I am like not the most patient person in the universe. So but that's a wrap up of all like the TV shows and movies and music and situations I really liked. But now I'm just going to talk about some of the random things that 2020 that I wound up doing in 2020 that I wouldn't expect I would really like, but yet here we are. The start of the pandemic gave me like a lot of free time, so I wound up like the rest of the world engaging in some things that I didn't necessarily predict, but one was Animal Crossing. I have a Switch. I rarely played it pre-pandemic, but I really like it. It's a fun, relaxing game, and it just kind of makes my brain go on like a vacation. And I just love my little village, and I love playing, building my houses and kind of that. And it's just, for a lifestyle right now, we really can't do much. I feel very invested in my character's happipiness, so like letting them build their world and, finding fossils and stuff like that. I really like. I actually have to try to play a little bit more over break now that I'll have the time, but I'm still trying to get into a situation where I can play when I come home from work. But the past couple of weeks that I've been so busy with BookMas, I've been having like less time to play Animal Crossing, but I still really do like it. Another thing that I wound up doing in 2020 when we lost our gyms was do virtual workouts. So like I've been going to my virtual yoga studio. Now we're kind of back in person for a little bit. But I've also been I actually bought it recently. I bought a Daily Burn subscription, which is just like sequenced workouts that you just kind of can do like one every day. And I've been following a certain procedure. Now I'm doing a bar workout, which is much more challenging than my previous workout, but really liking it and still just trying to stay fit and work out. We got also an exercise bike, so trying to have a little bit more exercise stuff at my house to kind of let me know, because eventually, right now it's going to be cold here. It's going to be cold here for at least the next 2 to 3 months or 4 months if we have a bad winter, which looking outside we might this year. We didn't actually have a bad one last year, but this year it appears we might. So just kind of having some, self activities to kind of keep myself busy have been great. And then another thing that I really wound up liking in 2020 was Skillshare, and that's just a virtual learning service that I wound up doing over the summer where I just kind of took a course every single day. Again, with me filming so many videos for BookMas, I've been taking a couple of weeks off, but it's like a year-long subscription. I love learning things. If I had my way, I would be going to school for the rest of my life. So I feel like Skillshare costs a lot less money, and it kind of lets me kind of break out of my comfort zone and try some new things. Right now I'm doing a lot about organization and goal setting and lack of procrastination and kind of setting up your day. But I do have a couple of topics that I'm intrigued for in 2021, and I will give you guys my thoughts about once I just start to take those. And then also kind of in accordance with that, I've been actually reading a lot of nonfiction. This year has been a weird year. It just has been, and a lot of topics have come up in the zeitgeist or like in the world that I wanted to learn more about, especially like race relations in America, and just other things that politics and stuff like that, and how politics should work, So I've been kind of doing a little bit more nonfiction reading, and it's just kind of stuck. So that's my goal, to kind of keep doing that in 2021, but kind of be a little bit more intentional with it. But yeah, that's kind of my year wrap up of all the things that really stuck out to me about 2020. And I really hope to keep doing this in 2021. Let me know in the comments if you like these wrap ups. I'm probably going to keep doing them anyway. But if you guys want me to like expand my content about it, let me know and give me some ideas, and maybe I'll make it like a weekly feature on my channel. But let me know your thoughts, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow for another day of BookMas. Bye.